Yes. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Micol. I am a curator and a producer. I come originally from Italy, but I've been living in Finland for 3 years and a half. And I'm super happy to be presenting my latest research and the publication Here Not, which is the first book I've published. It took me a couple of years to put this together, and it's been really a way of understanding how to position myself as a privileged migrant cultural worker in Finland in the context that is now hosting me. But also, a thrust behind this research has been to try to politicize my practice in a way that I can feel my work coming along with the kind of participation I want to have in society and how I perceive art in the first place. So Here Not, Dialogues on Art and the Making of Here, is a collection of interviews, photographic work, and creative writing with 14 arts and cultural workers based in Finland. And their work is especially interesting to me because they relate through art to urban and social infrastructures, trying to build places anew so that we can navigate the relationship we have with each other and with the environment in ways that counteract normal participation, I would say. Behind the book, there's also a research that I've done as part of my master thesis, which brings together border politics and contemporary curating. And I will, if you bear with me, I'll go into the theory for a moment later on. I think I'll start by reading just a small extract from my introduction to the book, which it's not academic, it's something more along the lines of creative writing and brings together different forms of language, including visual languages. So here is the problem and the answer. Here, a detensive hyphen in the word unseen. The hyphen is the line we're going to follow. The gasp, the crack, the pause, the act of pulling apart in order to keep together. The erasure of some made invisible, which reinforces the visibility of others. It is along these hyphens that we become complicit. Here Not tries to stand on them. It considers the line in relation to movement not simply as a trace of direction, but as a place to linger on, a viewing platform in motion. My thoughts are rushing. How does one slow down without ceasing to move? How does one make art without becoming elitist? What I'm chasing after as a cultural worker are the zones where we can catch as many glimpses of our world rendered for a moment meaningless to ourselves, but meaningful to others. Here Not is chasing for fractures where reality enlarges onto the world of someone or something else, moving to explore, to train the eye, and to tackle our biases and fears, to see the many worlds overlaid on our shared spaces. Here, I will stand on the line of these questions, at the door of a gallery, on the threshold of my fellow art workers' practices, and open myself to conversations that can hint at where to go. So Here Not really is a proposal of a way of working on local collective and grassroots practices that can help us understand how cultural work puts in place thresholds that perpetrate global dynamics. And that's when border politics comes in play for me. So what political propaganda wants us to believe is that the power of the border is that it impedes somebody to come in. But actually the border is powerful insofar as it has a potential to be crossed. And it is in allowing somebody to fulfill the capacity for crossing that the border decides upon what is our capacity to partake of a shared living. Those who are not allowed to fulfill the capacity of crossing that is fundamental to the border's power are then evicted from being alive in the first place. I think what we're seeing within a capitalist society is that the capacity of having a life equals to the capacity to move. So those who are recognized as living actually move increasingly in a quicker way, so that by moving quickly across a multiple amount of borders, we can produce surplus and then contribute to the stabilizing of a certain way of living together. So our capacity of crossing a border means we're actually stabilizing a certain status quo. Now, those who are not allowed to cross that border are believed as in destabilizing that way of living together, that way of relating to others and to the environment. Now, what does art have to do with all this? Political theorists like Attila Mbembe have been telling us that what's happening today is that borders become dematerialized. I would assume that most of us think of a border as a wall, something impersonal, something material and still and static, but so in place, so profoundly embedded with a place that we start to perceive it as natural. Actually, today's borders are embodied, are wearable, are the stuff we carry on ourselves, is the capacity of entering this place and why it's us here today and not others. What happens is that the argument of scarcity that politics continue to feed us with, there's not enough, so we need to protect ourselves from others, is making our geographies increasingly partitioned, increasingly segregated, and hence it feeds this fear of ambiguity, this fear of not knowing what's on the other side, what if it steals what we have, the fear of not knowing or not understanding what's on the other side. Now, I think that art functions a bit the way the border does. When you put an artwork in a place, you create this tiny world within a site. And the presence of the artwork and our presence in relation to it in that specific site transforms our capacity to act in that place. We tell stories about a place and we make this world-making narratives and stories, and that's what the border does as well. The border is a medium. It transforms who we are. So one thing that I believe art can do is to change the emotional associations we have with not knowing, with just not understanding it, with the things we can't grasp, with difference. And I think this is something we can do exactly where we are. Like in the face of these global shifts and of increasingly weaponized and violent infrastructures that seem to be too big to us, what we can do is to start from good site-specific work and see where are the thresholds that we're putting in place, who we're talking to, and why and how. Now, I would like to make a point that I'm not suggesting to make spaces for everybody. When we try to make a space for everybody, we end up using the mainstream language, and we know that that's not for everybody at all. Rather, thinking through borders and against borders is a way of understanding who we want to talk to and how to do it best. So this is really understanding that diversity is already always there. So we don't have to make it, we just need to allow it. Now, the way I've tried to do this is to look around for interesting people and to see how they relate to the urban and social infrastructures of Helsinki and Finland and experience migration space in different ways. I thought I could focus on the work of Improvios Collective because they've been very fundamental in the way this project has developed. Improvios Collective is a group of 4 performers coming from Latin America. There is a very active and fruitful Latin American diaspora in the art field in Helsinki. And I approached them trying to break the dynamic of the studio visits and trying to break the dynamic of the interviewer-interviewee. So I asked if I could join the rehearsals. I went dancing, and I'm not a dancer, and it was very awkward. But I recorded the conversation that followed this dancing together. And what we started to unpack, and this is the conversation that is in the book, is how memories of certain urban spaces continue to impact the way we move. Paula, one of the performers, told me that when she dances to the sound of the market square. And that exchange between the seller and those who are buying, the passing over of the fruit, is what continues to play a rhythm in her engagement with the space. This person is Daniela Pascual. She is actually an urban planner, and she's been fundamental in the development of my research. We started looking into dancing public spaces together. She is the one who introduced me to urban planning and architecture, which has then come into the book in a fundamental way. And Daniela is also the person who introduced me to the concept of the threshold, of how we as bodies can become borders or to meet others. What you're seeing here is a performance that is called Cuerpa Latina. The three performers dance to different songs that they hear on headphones, so the viewers don't actually listen to the music. The viewers are passive for a bit, and the dancers interact with the infrastructure of the place. At some point, the music switches to loudspeakers, and that's when they start to interact with the passers-by. Now, what this is doing is to break a form of politeness that is very present in the public space in Finland, that it's a form of respect, but it's also a form of isolation. And it's a way of understanding how we relate to strangers in the public space. They put it much more simply than me. They say that they just want to make a big party. And that when you party for real, hierarchical structures, though while being still present, don't affect anymore the way the space is made. Because dancing together changes this bodily relations. I will also want to quickly read a passage from the text that concludes the book. I didn't want to write a conclusion for it. I thought that would have been a bit redundant. And this is a gorgeous text wrote by Amy Gelera. They are a designer from Guatemala City. They work now through their collective SUR in the University Alto University, where I also studied and where part of this book was produced. So it was important to have a critical voice within the academia as well. So Amy writes, I believe that the discomfort that has constantly propelled so many of us to move and to make does not often resist well against comfort. Most of us do not wish to continue to struggle perpetually. We must also have the opportunity to lace and to recover. It is very uncomfortable to face the possible comfort that a country can achieve, supported by colonial histories and structures that facilitate the exploitative extraction of abundances in countries of the global south, like the territories I come from. Resisting abundant comfort does not require much when one does not inherit it by privilege, but creating a critique against it requires organizing. Through collaborative resistance, discomfort, and abundance, SUR was born, and with it our manifesto. Open quote. We are an essentially Latin American collective. We are an apapatro. We are an intersectional and ecofeminist presence. We are contradiction. We are an attempt to decolonize the space of knowledge creation. We are an experiment in constant construction and re-signifying. We are dialogue and protest. We are threads of an expanding quilt. We are salt flats, mountain ranges and rivers. We are cuerpas in action. Oh, end quote. Resistance is urgent within educational institutions that do not open the dialogue to alternative critical perspectives of current ways of making and thinking that perpetuate biased and violent technologies and knowledges. Resisting requires making abundant comfort uncomfortable and discomfort comforting. Sur collectively decided to comfort each other by acting and caring through the discomfort of the South. Many of us do not have the privilege to comfortably ignore the violent fight for abundance in our territories. Instead, we have used our discomfort as a moving force against comfortable narratives pushed around and towards us. I often think about how quickly we adapt to discomfort once it becomes part of our lives, and how much it hurts when comfort gets taken away. How only when we are uncomfortable, we are prompted to move. How when we move, we look beyond our own. For me, moving is resistance. So I think Amy was able to combine in 2 pages what I was trying to say with the whole book, which is that there is something about not getting lazy with our work that allows us to work from what we have at hand and change things just like a little bit at a time, methodically. And that's why the book is looking for a method to follow through time. I'll just quickly end up like giving a bit of a context as to also like the social surroundings of the book. This was the book launch in Helsinki. It was very important and organic and natural for me for the book launch to be part of something bigger, of a community of its own kind. This was a festival that I co-produced and co-curated with a group of students from our course. 20 students presented their research and their practice outdoors when it wasn't too windy and cold, and indoors when we couldn't. And this was really thought as a huge picnic for a couple of days. These are some shots from the guided tours and the mediation program of the Helsinki Biennial 2023, that for which I worked together with some of my parents and colleagues. We made this tiny book. I only have 1 copy of this. I can't tell them. I'm not allowed by the institution. But I tried in this context of the book and of the tours to use movement as a way of mediating art, especially mediating formats that are hardly accessible in traditional interaction, for example, sound pieces. So it looks like we're chilling, but we're actually kind of like this listening to this gorgeous sound piece about water extraction in Argentina. So this is a little bit about the book. As Michelle said, there's some copies if you're interested. And I would like to end by reading a little bit of a poem that Daniela has wrote for the book. The poem is in Spanish and English. I will read the last part. El ave del paradiso blanca by Daniela Pasquale Sparza. When I walk and everything stands still, the only sound I hear is the rubber of my boots against the snow. I am invaded by a false memory, an invented memory of a finca de Babahoyo, banana trees everywhere, the sun piercing my skin. The air there is thick and humid. I feel myself melting. I expand, and so, as the cold wrinkles my skin, I feel foreign to the forest and the miracles around me. I repeat, may indifference not prevent me from acknowledging the beauty of this place. May indifference not prevent me from acknowledging the beauty of this place. May indifference not prevent me from acknowledging the beauty of this place. I keep walking, I unfold, and for a moment I'm near my grandfather and the soursop tree in his garden. near my grandmother, who's now a bird, and by that river I too have crossed. What do you see when you watch me dance? Sometimes I cry without tears, and other times I welcome the moonlight, lives I've never lived, a Colombian mafalea, the dust from the street, a Dembo song, the Andean condor, a balcony in spring, Quilapayún. Every pore in my skin is a threshold, and every day a Sunday afternoon, the chance for you and I to meet, perhaps to dance. That's it.